Hello, I'm in Central Park by this lovely tree. It's a little windy. I have my muff on my mic, so maybe that will help. Anyway, I think I've talked about picking up books at the library that are staff recommendations. Well, I got one a couple weeks ago, another staff recommendation in an East Village library. And this is a brief, short novel, 150 pages, by George Simenon. George Simenon, who is a French writer from the 20th century, and one of these guys that wrote like 500 novels or something like that. So, very prolific. So I picked up his book that was in the staff picks at the library called The Train. Now, I'd heard of George Simenon before, but never read him. The Train was, once again, another novel I got at the library, was about the French in World War I. That was Fear, which I talked about in a previous episode here. But The Train was set in World War II, where Fear was World War I. And what goes on in The Train, it's about a man. It's first person, written by this man named Marcel. Marcel is a radio repairman in a small town in France. And the war's brewing. He knows it's brewing. And he's sort of waiting for it to happen and expecting it, is what he says in the beginning of the book. And when it does, yes, they're coming, and he and his wife, and they have one daughter and one on the way, are given an option to leave the area to avoid the oncoming war. So they get on the train. And the men and the women are going in, and women and children go in different parts of the train. So he ends up on in a freight car, while she gets to ride in the passenger section with the child. At any rate, they're going south. They don't know where they're going. They all get separated. He gets separated from his wife and child. And in the course of this, he runs into a woman named Anna. And that's basically the story about his relationship, this sort of hooking up in this extreme situation with Anna, and what goes on with the two of them and how connected he is to Anna. Now, at some point, he doubts Anna is she says she's come out of a prison. She's been released from some prison in Belgium, and she's actually Czech. So, it's all these European people running around all over the place. So he doesn't really know why she was in prison or anything like that. And, he is a little suspicious of her at one point. It's like, okay, well, she hooked up with me because she needed protection on this trip. And, she would have been vulnerable to whatever had she not hooked up with him, and which is what she did. And maybe that's what it was all about, and maybe it was all this practical thing. But, they do have this love they share, actually. They and they're not the only ones in this extreme situation of this refugee train. There are other people who get in these relationships of temporary convenience or whatever, or just to latch on to someone during these moments of crisis. So, that's what the book is about how in crisis people will do all kinds of things, like this man, he wonders about his wife and wonders what happened to them. And, he keeps checking for them, but he stays with Anna, and they ultimately find themselves in a refugee camp in somewhere in France, and they both claim, it's a refugee camp for Belgian people, so they keep a low profile so they're not found out and kicked off the place. But so it's written in the form of a memoir in the future. At the very end of it, it's written. There's a note of 1961, so he's writing this, 15 years in the future or whatever about what went on during the war, and has not told his wife about this, and it's doubtful whether he ever will, or if he wants to at this point. So it's an interesting thing to think about, and interesting that I come upon this book now. When there are these wars brewing all over the place, and a lot of them, the cause of the United States is the behavior of the United States. At any rate, it's caused a lot of people to be refugees all over the world, and it's put them in a lot of chaos. Probably a lot of it was not unlike what went on in this novel. So The Train is really a very interesting little 150-page novel, and I can recommend it. And if you want to read something like that about wartime and the things people do, I mean, what is sex anyway? I mean, why are we compelled toward it, and also have a sort of distance from it at the same time? It seems such a bind to be in a human body and be compelled to breed and be attached to these feelings that are connected with breeding and to keeping the whole mess brewing along. So, George Simenon's The Train. Good book.